If you have a true strange or scary story you want to send into the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. Also still selling signed posters, so go to the coffee link down in the comments or description and check them out. And thank you. I'm a 35-year-old guy living in Sweden, and this story of mine is truly mind-bending. There's a precursor to this story that happened to me when I was around 7 years old that I won't go into here, but just know that paranormal experiences set a firm belief in me when I turned 12. That if I ever were to experience something like that again, any paranormal things, I would face them. If it so takes 10 years, 30 years, or 50 years, I will wait for it and I will face it head on next time it happens. So when I was 21 years old, I went out one late night from my parents' house, where I lived, to have a smoke. We lived in an ordinary Swedish neighborhood, with houses stretching along both sides of my street. As I went outside, I saw that it was a clear night sky, and as I'm fascinated by our universe, I always took my time looking at the stars whenever I could. To get a better view, I went out through our fence gate and stood in the middle of the street looking up. The stars were beautiful, and much clearer than it usually was. As I'm standing there, I start to hear someone approaching me from a distance down the street, maybe like 30 to 40 meters away from me. It was very dark since it was late autumn, and very late at night, but I still tried to see who it was as I could only hear the footsteps. As I'm standing there, squinting with my eyes and adjusting as you do with your body, rocking back and forth to get a better view, I realized that, what if the person could see me? He would probably think I'm mad, standing there, late at night in the middle of the street, smoking a cigarette, moving around, and looking intensely. So I just went inside our fence gate and stood there instead. I still wanted to know who was approaching on my street, so to speak. So I still tried to see him. I moved to our driveway where I could have a better look down the road. There's nothing blocking my view here except for my closest neighbor's hedge that's about 70 centimeters tall, so I have a good overview down the whole street. Nothing. Just the sound of someone's footsteps slowly walking towards me down the street. It was when I stood there that I realized that this isn't normal, but paranormal. This guy was about 10 meters away now, and I couldn't see anyone. When I realized this, every cell in my body screamed, "I've been waiting for you, you bastard." I had sworn to myself to confront it whenever it happened the next time, and boy was I hellbent on it. The whole thing made no sense. I could feel it in my bones that it was paranormal, but in my logical brain the only rational possibility left was if it was a small person approaching that was shorter than our neighbor's hedge, thus blocking my view of him. So, to eliminate this possibility, I stepped out from our driveway, looking right down the road with nothing to obscure my vision. Nothing. There's no one there. Just the sound of footsteps right in front of me. I kid you not, the sound of the footsteps were now coming from 3 to 4 meters right in front of me. He's right there, right in front of me, but I saw no one. I now truly understand the mechanism of fight or flight, because my whole body just acted on its own, and I started to run. You see, I was hellbent in my mind to confront him. I've been waiting nearly a decade for it, but your body just goes on autopilot, and in my case, runs. There's no controlling it. After all, there was nothing to fight against. I ran to our house entrance door that was further away from him, but I was still damn determined to find out what the hell was going on. So I stood there looking instead, as I felt a little safer close to the door. Sure enough, The sound of someone walking slowly was still there. But now he also had a bicycle with him that he led beside him. How did I know? Do you remember when you were a kid and you put those small plastic balls in the bicycle spokes, so it made that cling 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 sound as the wheels turned? It was exactly that sound, alongside his footsteps. I looked as he passed the gate where I could see right through to the whole street. No one there. Cling cling cling. I tried to see him through the gaps in my fence as he passed, but to no avail. The next clear path to my eyes was between my fence and my other neighbor's driveway. He walked with his bicycle halfway up my neighbor's driveway, cling cling, and then it all stopped. I was certain that he had now noticed me. I felt that he was looking at me, and for some reason I just knew that it was a boy. I could feel it. For a brief moment, I was terrified that some ghostly apparition would come flying any second towards my face. But suddenly he dropped his bicycle and started to run down the street. It was like lightning struck my whole body. Oh no, you won't get away that easily. I sprinted towards our fence gate after him. When I got through the gate, I looked down the street where he had sprinted to, and I found nothing. No bicycle left behind and no boy. There was no way that someone would have sprinted the 30 meters down the street to the first turn before I sprinted my 7 meters out to the street. I calmed down. The experience was over, but then I noticed something. I noticed just how bright the street was. I could clearly see down the whole street. How could I not have seen him in the first place? I looked up. The stars were not anywhere near as bright anymore, and suddenly I realized. The street lamps were on. They couldn't have been turned on the first time I went out into the street. It was very late night, and the lamps come on as soon as it gets a little bit dark outside. No, they hadn't just switched over to night mode. That boy that I heard had extinguished the entire street's electricity with his presence. I never had a feeling that this was a ghost. He felt very much alive. I believe I got an audio glimpse into a clashing parallel universe where maybe most things are similar and some are not. Maybe it was daytime for the boy, and he was out with his bicycle. Maybe my house was an old abandoned one, and maybe he eventually also clashed into my universe, seeing my silhouette standing there in the doorway of this creepy old house, looking intensely at him. Well, then no wonder the poor boy dropped his bicycle and ran for his life. Hello, Raven. I really enjoy your glitch stories, and so I'm submitting mine. About a month ago, I was sitting on my couch. It was about 10 p.m., and I was actually listening to a glitch video of yours. I'm pretty new here, so I'm backtracking, checking out the older videos and catching up on stories I've missed. Anyway, I'm listening on my phone with my AirPods in my ears. I get through a couple of stories, and as I hear the 6 musical notes that are between the stories, I decide to pause and take a bathroom break. My bathroom is about 10 paces from my couch, so I go in and do my thing. As I'm looking in the bathroom mirror while washing my hands, I noticed my right AirPod is missing. I look on the floor and in the sink, which did have the plugs, so it didn't fall down the plug hole. It didn't fall down the neck of my t-shirt, and I didn't hear it hit the floor. I retraced my no more than 10 steps back to the couch in the living room and searched the floor thinking that I would find it. No. I looked on the couch and between the cushions. It was nowhere. I decided I would find it in the morning. Next morning, I did a thorough search of the whole bathroom, hallway. It was nowhere to be found. Now, I'm thinking maybe my dog picked it up and took it somewhere, so I did a phone search for it, but it could only locate the left AirPod. Now I'm thinking, damn, I'm gonna have to buy a new one. Fast forward 2 days and I'm doing my weekly wash, and as my clothes are now ready to go into the dryer, I open up the dryer door before loading it with my clothes. And right there is my missing AirPod. sitting by itself on the bottom of the drum. I have no idea how. But, oh well. By the way, the AirPod still worked okay. So wherever it was for 2 days, it didn't affect it. Hey Raven. I wasn't going to do this, as I've never told this story before to anyone, but like many others who send in their stories to you, I've been listening to your channel for a while now, and thought, well, why not? So, too, unlike most of the others, there was nothing unusual about or around me when this happened. In other words, there was no sense of any unusual foreboding. No sudden stillness or feeling of any shifts in time or the atmosphere around me. Nor any sudden change in the weather, say, or any equally sudden change in the light hue or anything like that. I think you get my drift. Anyways, to get down to it, I live in Regina, Canada, and have worked as a steelworker there for a very long time. I'm an average dude with no major hang-ups. I have a stable home and a decent network of good friends. So, basically, my big party days and going out regularly are behind me. I work, pay the bills, and mostly putter around my house or polish my car on my days off, and can even reinforce my basic sameness and tranquility by saying that I even have a cat and goldfish now. I'm not saying that I'm a total bore, but I just want to emphasize that I have a simpler, more stable life than other times in my past, when I was much more of a hellraiser. And actually, I think most of us as we get a little older can totally relate to this as well. Okay, so now I've laid the groundwork with just one other caveat that, as a steelworker, I've been working 12-hour graveyard shifts on a rotating schedule as well. So needless to say, when I get off a shift, it's straight to the shower and then to bed to crash. This applies to between shifts, or to my first day and the start of my days off as well. Again, after a long, tough 12-hour pull with the work I do, sleep is simply mandatory for the body as needed. So now getting down to this event as it happened to me in October of last year. I had just started my days off and woke up way later in the day, around supper time, and as it was mid-October, it was also the start of hockey season in Canada. So for those that live here, this needs no further explanation. But for those who don't, well then I can simply point to the start of another cricket season in India, or rugby season in South Africa, or baseball or football seasons in the United States. Yes, Raven, as any avid sports fan can tell you, when it's a new season, it's time to once again ride it out with your favorite team or teams. All the highs and the lows, the screaming and yelling, and whooping it up after a win. And the despondent nights of moping after a tough loss, especially if it's to a fervently hated rival. Anyways, I had just got up, charged downstairs, grabbed some leftovers out of my lunch cooler box, snagged a beer out of the fridge, and got settled in on the couch just as the national anthems wrapped up, and the players started circling the ice for the puck drop. So I sat and watched the first period closely, as this was the first look at my hockey team for the new season, and I wanted to see some of the new players we had acquired in the off-season, and just simply get a good first feel for the kind of team we might have for the run this time, and naturally get a feel of where my hopes might go. So, I watched closely, until it was late in the first period and after the next offside whistle. I knew there would be a short set of commercials and thought this is a perfect time to run my empty plate into the kitchen, dump my empty beer can, and snag another cold one out of the fridge. I'll also add that I felt perfectly too, as I had just started days off. It was the start of the new season. My team certainly did look good out the gate, and we were skating well to a 1-0 lead over a hated rival. So all was grand. Until I stepped back into the living room with my new beer, frozen just as it was dangling in my hand. and total and complete shock set in. For I was not gone from the living room or my game for more than 45 seconds, if even that. For now, in fact, the first period was over, and the whole intermission between periods. And it was now well into the second period, and my team was down 2-1. I know what I saw. I know what I saw and cannot describe the feelings really accurately here. Just complete disconnect. Total shock. My eyes darted all around my living room looking for anything or something that could possibly explain this. No, I was not looking for something else out of place, and as it turned out, there never was. But just looking around wildly, like you've been lost suddenly before, or panic when you've misplaced something vital that you suddenly need, that you were sure was right there beside you. A complete and utter disassociation. Slowly, I put my beer down on the coffee table, and stepped slowly back after more than a good minute had gone by, and backed up again into the kitchen through my entryway. This time, I took a short pause to try and regain some of my balance and composure. Not really succeeding all that much, but at least enough to tamp down the sense of disconnect and spinning confusion. This time, I looked very slowly around my kitchen, and through the entryway in reverse back into my living room. Nothing to see here. Situation normal. So, slowly I moved back into my living room thinking automatically that I must have been seeing things, or got something wrong somehow or some way. Obviously the score I knew to be real had to be there. So I looked over at the TV and stared very carefully at the screen once more. Fleetingly, I thought maybe it was a tape delay, and they'd run the program forward. But I knew better, as I've been watching this sports network my whole adult life, and knew full well that a tape-delayed game did not play the national anthems, had far fewer commercials for the shortened game, and the live logo at the bottom corner of the screen would have been overlapped with the tape-delayed one. No, this was indeed a live hockey game where at least 40 to 50 minutes of it, including the full intermission, had disappeared. Gone. And as one final ode to transparency and full disclosure in this story, I knew also that I had not lost that time. For you can believe, had I been watching the whole time, then there would certainly have been more than one empty beer can sitting right over there on my kitchen counter. So, no question about that, either. As my long rituals of several beers into hockey game goes back several decades as well. And most Canadian hockey fans would swear to this alongside me without a second thought. So, anyways, that's my story. And that's what happened to me one day in my home last October. And like everyone else out there, when confronted with the totally inexplicable, like many have posted here, I know what I saw. I have no rational or possible coherent or tangible explanation. And like everyone else out there too, even after pondering the event many times since, I have not once doubted what I had seen. So that's it. And thanks to all for hearing my story, and hope for myself at least, that I never get knocked out of my senses like that in this life, ever again. Hi Raven. I found your channel this year and I relate to so many stories. Your voice is also nice to listen to while I fall asleep. Like many storytellers, I have many stories that I have to send in, but it's nighttime, so I'm skipping the scarier stuff for now. When I get time, I will send it in. When my son and I first moved into our apartment 4 years ago, I was 34 and he was 11. He was just old enough to be home alone while I worked, and I was put on afternoon shift or midnights. When he would message me that he needed me, I would come straight home, which was about a 7-minute drive. Just setting the picture up. One night, I was home and it was a cool night. We had one fan that my son had, even though he had screens in his windows, and I did not. I still cracked open my windows just to get a cool breeze into my room. That night, I had a dream that I was above myself watching me sleep, and something was scratching at the wall under my open window, and it was about to jump into my room. I do not know what it was, but it was not friendly. I jumped out of my bed and shut my window. I went into my son's room and crawled into bed with him. I can't sleep when I'm hot, and I was a little scared. I forgot about that dream, and a week later my son was home alone, and he would sleep in my bed when I would work midnights. He messaged me at 3 a.m. asking me to come home because he was really scared. So I clocked out and drove kind of fast. I was worried. When I come in, he hugged me and told me about his dream. He'd had the same exact dream that I had the week prior, and I was in shock. I didn't tell him about having that dream. He knows now, but he's 15, and I'm home every night now too. We had the same dream down to us both jumping up and shutting the window with our eyes shut. At that time, I took a few days off to get him a cat. Cats typically protect you from bad spirits, and I told him that. We did not have issues again together. There've been a few times that I've had sleep paralysis, and I believe my son has too. The other issue is things go missing and then show up out of the blue. I had a press-on nail pop off in the past week, and I set the nail to the side to glue it back on, and when I grabbed the glue, I had nails in all of my fingers, even though I was looking at the nail that popped off on my side table. There are so many glitches, but these are the least scary. I also have paranormal stories, but I live in Appalachia, and we don't talk about those at night. This is messing with my head big time. I visit my mom every day. She lives alone. I drop my fiancé at work and drive straight to her house every single day. I hang for a few hours, go pick up my fiancé, and we go home to our apartment. Every day. Rinse, repeat. I don't know if this matters, but a few months ago, she had every lock in her house changed. I was there, and I have keys to all of them. Old owners of the house didn't leave keys to every lock, so that's why she did that. I usually show up before she wakes up for the day. I was here yesterday. I come in through the garage door that opens into the laundry room every single day. I only have 4 keys on my keyring. Her garage/laundry door, our apartment, mailbox, and my car. I always have to unlock the door when I get to her house. Always. Yesterday, my key worked fine. Today it doesn't. I stood there for what felt like forever, trying to unlock that door, and my key does not work. I eventually gave up and entered through the front doors. Keys work just fine for those. I keep them on a separate ring inside my purse. Once inside, I tried and tried again, and my key will not open the door that it opened yesterday. Then I checked her keys, and her key to that door doesn't work either. She had a few spares made of all the new lock keys, and none of them work either. It's like the lock was changed in the night. Assuming someone didn't break into her house, which has an alarm system, and change the lock, how is this possible? None of the keys work anymore. I tried a total of 10 keys. This is so stupid, but I am so confused. Now, this part may seem strange to some people because I am adding a bit of a caveat to this story. This story ended up not actually being a glitch in the Matrix. The reason I'm including this is to show that, sometimes, these stories do have logical explanations. By no means am I saying that every glitch story has a logical explanation, because, let's be honest, some of them don't. This one did. Apparently this was an issue with corrosion in the lock. The person ended up spraying Pam into the lock, the non-stick cooking spray, which, by the way, is never suggested because it will destroy the lock potentially, and the keys actually worked. Now you may ask why I'm including this, if this isn't a glitch in the Matrix. Again, I'm doing so to show that even the strangest stories where something works one day and doesn't the next, they may appear to be glitches, but sometimes there's, again, logical explanations. Plus, still an interesting story in my opinion. Hi Raven. I recently became one of your listeners, and I have a few stories I could share, but I believe this is the first I should. The story is for no one younger than 13 years old. Background story: my parents were divorced since I was a baby, so I had a stepmother, stepsister, and half-brother from my dad's side. One weekend when I was staying at my stepmother's house, I was hanging out with my stepsister and the front house neighbor who was a teenager. At this time, me and my stepsister were 8 or 9 years old. We were talking, as one does, and they broke the news to me in a making fun of me for not knowing way that Santa wasn't real. I have always been a very honest person, so I felt betrayed by my mother for lying to me about it. Obviously, now that I have grown, I understand the magic of Christmas and all, but back then, my world crumbled, as I had just found out my mother had been, quote, lying my whole life. So when I went back to my mother's house, I started crying, telling her I knew the truth about Santa because my stepsister told me, and how mad and hurt I was that she had lied to me. The next weekend, I was at my father's house. I was talking to my stepsister about the existence of Santa, and to my surprise, she didn't know about it. I asked her, "How don't you know if you had told me the last time I was here?" She denied ever saying such a thing, and I got heavily scolded by my father and stepmother for ruining that for my stepsister. Fast forward to when I was 20, I was telling my stepmother how my stepsister told me that Santa didn't exist, and she said that couldn't be true because I was the one who told my stepsister. I called my mom thinking I was going crazy, and I asked her if she remembered who had told me about Santa, and she confirmed by saying, "Yeah, it was your stepsister. I remember that I was fuming about the fact that she popped that bubble for you, but yes, you had even thrown a tantrum on how betrayed you felt." So this made me question, how can I remember what my mom is telling me, but also recall the scolding I had from my father and stepmother over telling my stepsister? How can the person who told me Santa wasn't real also know that Santa wasn't real? I oddly believe the most logical answer is that I possibly traveled to another universe after the weekend when she had told me. Or maybe I dreamt it. The dream is not very logical because I typically recognize I'm dreaming in my dreams, and know how to differentiate reality versus dream easily. And if anyone has any other explanations, I'm all ears. This is a true story, and it happened to me today. I want to begin by saying I love your podcast, and I've been listening to it for about a month now. Thank you. My 5th grade teacher, who we will call Miss Apple for the story, Miss Apple celebrated Chinese New Year with us and gave us red bookmarks with our names in Chinese, and on the back it had our names in English, so we would know whose was whose. And mine said my name, which is Bella. So I was like, cool, I'll bring it home and use it, because I love reading. So that day I brought it to my house and lost it a week after. Of course, I was really bummed to lose it, and I searched for it every day, but I just couldn't find it. So fast forward to today, my now 6th grade teacher tells us to go get our library books for silent reading, and of course I was happy. So I walked over to my cubby, and right when I opened it, guess what I saw? My red bookmark. And at first I was like, oh, someone probably replaced theirs, so I flipped it over to see the name so I could return it, but instead of saying one of my classmates' names, It said Bella. At first, I was confused because no one else's name is Bella in my class. And then I realized it was mine. I'm still confused right now because, like I said earlier, it feels like the Matrix just grabbed it to use it, then gave it back. I really don't know what happened, but thank you for reading my story. When my sister and I were kids, we loved to play with cat figurines. We had a lot of them. Different characters with personalities. We had our own extended multiverse of cat characters. One day we were playing a game on the table in our room. There was one character who I always played as, who was one of our favorites. We both loved the character. He was like a fatherly mentor type doctor, and we played with him every game. In the middle of an emotional scene, I had set him down to switch characters, and I accidentally knocked him off the table. The floor was a bit messy, but we both saw where he landed, and he wasn't there. He had just vanished. I looked around the floor, even places where he couldn't have been. I deep cleaned the entire room searching for him, but he was gone. My little heart was broken. I never lost another character before or after, and I even still have them in a box in my closet at 27 years old. But I never found my favorite boy again. As a kid, I thought that God was punishing me for loving something material, or something. This feels silly to write out, but I was really emotionally attached to my toy cats. It's probably autism related, I don't know. I just wanted to share my most heartbreaking glitch story. So that, my friends, was this week's collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories. Stories that highlight and underline the bizarre, strange, and oddness of our existence. Stories where things are just downright weird, right? We're just like, what the heck is going on there? That's the question. And we don't have an answer. So we just keep asking the question. Over and over. Like a parrot. Yeah. Anyways, fantastic stories. Always enjoyable Glitch in the Matrix stories are, in my opinion. Hopefully you share that opinion. If not, that's okay. Not everything is for everybody. We have a lot of stuff coming this week, so hopefully you all are looking forward to that, and the several weeks following this. I'm going to be very tired by the time we're done. Very tired. Anyways, hopefully y'all enjoyed these Glitch in the Matrix stories. I did, and if you did, please do hit that like button, the thumbs up below the video, that'd be awesome. If you're new to the channel and enjoyed what you heard and want more scary and strange stories, just go ahead and click the subscribe button. Bell icon is optional, but, I appreciate it. You can also submit your stories to astheravendreams.com. There's a big button there to click as well. That takes you to the submission page. I accept any strange or scary story. We're not just scary stories here. We are strange and scary stories. Something I've been leaning into a little more lately. Because I noticed not everything I do is creepy. Some of them are just weird, and I kind of like that, so, yeah. You can also join Patreon memberships, get early access to content like this and other things, depending on what you sign up for. Again, the coffee link down below, that's Ko-Fi, Ko-Fi, is to purchase posters that are signed and numbered by yours truly, if you want to do so. I ship anywhere in the US, and if you're outside of the US, just contact me and we can work something out. We'll make it work somehow. You can listen on other platforms, like Spotify, or Audible, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, anything like that. iTunes, I think, somewhere in there. I'm not really sure on the Apple infrastructure on that, sorry, but, that's pretty much everything on that end. So let's go ahead and move on to what we call the word of the week. Last week, I gave you guys a word, as I do every week. And on the screen right now, and a few moments prior to this moment in time, is a collection of all the screenshots I took of people leaving their comments with said word of the week. All of these people went above and beyond, and to them I have to say thank you. I'm kind of stretching this out so they stay on the screen a little longer if you haven't noticed. Thank you, again, to every single one of them who left a sentence with the word of the week. If you didn't, that's totally okay. But if you did, great. Anyways, moving on. Let's move to this week's word of the week. This week, the word of the week was suggested to me by someone on the live stream I did on Saturday night. That's right, I did a live stream on Saturday night, and let me tell you guys, it went way better than I anticipated. It was just 2.5 hours of me talking to you beautiful people. You lovely folks who dropped in, said hi, said what's up. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. I really did. And I plan to do more of them in the near future. But anyways, the word of the week was given to me by someone in the live stream, so the word of the week this week is Elocution. Elocution. That's elocution, not electrocution. Elocution, which means a style of speaking, especially in public, or the art of effective public speaking. I distinctly lack elocution in every sense of the word. Public speaking is horrifying for me. Yeah. This is not public speaking. This is me talking to a microphone. But it helps, I guess. Anyways. So elocution. Use elocution in a sentence, in the comments. And I will use it. I'll use your screenshot next week in the end. Yeah. Thank you to everyone who listened to this point, and thank you to everyone who listens at all. I hope you know that you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Until next time, my friends. Much love, and sleep well.